Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It's Coach Drew, and I'm here with Big Nick. Yeah, yup.
Yeah, yup.
Well, guys, welcome to Week 9. We are about 1 week away from the College Football Playoff Committee making their first decisions and giving us an idea of where they're going with everything. We're also going to tackle that live on Tuesdays, so look out for us on your streams. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us not only on YouTube, but Spotify, and we're also on TikTok and X and all those good fun things.
We're heavily on TikTok. We're super
Heavily on
TikToking.
TikTok.
Yeah.
We love talking football. We're also talking football on Fridays, too. But that's enough about us. We know why you're here. Let's get right to it. We got some games that we're going to call the elimination game possibilities leading up to the college football playoffs. The first game we're going to talk about is happening in Oklahoma as Ole Miss travels down there and tries to stir some trouble. Nick, what do you got going on with that game?
So the number 8 Ole Miss Rebels are plus 4.5 at Oklahoma, who is ranked number 13 currently by the Associated Press. This is a noon Eastern Standard Time game on ABC. So the ESPN game predictor has a 55% chance of Oklahoma winning. So Ole Miss can flat out score. There's no doubt about that, and Lane Kiffin teams usually can. But their defense gets C- or a D+ or something in my book. They don't really play a lot of defense down there in Rebel land. But on the other side of the ball, Oklahoma has a very good defense for the most part. But how healthy is Sean Mateer? His numbers after the hand surgery he had a few weeks ago, last year his numbers were down. Obviously, they struggled and lost the Red River shootout against the Longhorns a couple weeks ago. So I'm not really sure who's going to win this game, but even in our Midwest Blitz coverage, we don't cover SEC a lot, but these games are going to start becoming important as we get closer to the college football playoff, as my friend Coach Drew just pointed out. The other SEC games that we have to talk about real quick are number 15, Missouri, plus 2.5 at Vanderbilt, who is ranked number 10. This will be 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on ESPN, CSPN. So just like Indiana, a lot of people are saying, how in the hell is Vanderbilt ranked in the top 10? Well, Clark Lee is a hell of a coach, and he's a proud Vanderbilt alum. That's really the building block or cornerstone of their success down there. And that's a pretty dang good start. There's been a lot of conjecture about Coach Eli Drinkowitz from Missouri being courted by other schools right now, kind of like we've talked about with Matt Rule at Nebraska. I'm not saying that he's leaving, but I wonder if that could become a distraction for his ball club in a tough road game against a physical, well-coached Vanderbilt team. So I guess we'll see at 3:30 on Saturday. The other one is number 3, Texas A&M at LSU, ranked number 20 somehow. LSU is plus 2.5 in this ball game. A&M is 7-0. I looked at their schedule. They got quality wins over Notre Dame, University of Texas San Antonio, which is a very good group of 5 school. And I give them a lot of credit for their early season conference win over Auburn, who has a very good defense and not a very good offense. But that's kind of A&M's resume. Let's check in with Bayou Brian and the Bengals, Drew, and let's look at their resume so far, ranked number 20. What did we say? There's 8 SEC teams ranked in the top 25 and 3 Big Ten teams. Is that what we said when we did the recap yesterday? Something like that?
Yeah, it was really high, honestly.
So LSU remains ranked number 20. Their quality wins at 5-2 are over Florida, who just fired their coach and is having a rough season, but a talented Florida team. I think LSU threw 4 interceptions in that game or something. They beat Clemson, who has been a complete disappointment. I'd put Clemson on par with Penn State, honestly, as far as the letdown that they've had this season so far. And then I think South Carolina I had as their next best win. So LSU gets to be ranked number 20, despite their 3 best wins being over Florida, who just fired their coach, Clemson, who's decided to take the season off, and South Carolina, who has just not lived up to expectations. So it's been a tough year for Bayou Brian and the Bayou Bengals. They are one of two Division 1A teams in the country that have not scored more than 20 points against a Power 4 opponent. Do you know who the other team is, Coach Drew? It's okay if you don't.
What's the other team? Go ahead and let America know.
North Carolina, the the Tar Heels of North Carolina. The only two teams who haven't scored 20 against a Power 4 opponent. It's brutal. But it's been a good year for Mike Elko and the Aggies. And they're going to bring some physical defense, and they're going to bring Marcel Reed. That kid can run and gun and sling it. We're going to see how LSU does. Their defense has been pretty good, though, with Whit Weeks at linebacker, a couple other guys. But that's kind of our little SEC rundown. Coach Drew, got anything to say on that front?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Going back to the Oklahoma Ole Miss, this is reminding me of back when Alabama played Clemson a couple years back. This is a matchup of two coaches that are on different sides of the balls, now leading their team as head coaches. With Mizzou to Vandy, I think Vandy's in an interesting position, being kind of like how you mentioned, like your Hoosiers. They're a team. Now, we were talking about this, like, historically, like, Vandy comes from a rich, like, culture of how they became who they are today by owning the railroads and different things. So it's going to be interesting to see how they could benefit the NIL by doing things and getting that money.
Literally
One last
rich.
thing.
Literally rich.
Rich.
The Vanderbilts, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. I thought that was like kind of like a fun history fact. Texas A&M playing at Bayou Brian. This both coaches are familiar with each other, one on offense, one on defense. They used to be former coaches together in the same room. So whenever you see this, it kind of interested. It's kind of like a Jedi battle. We're gonna use a Star Wars reference since we're talking about C-SPAN and Disney's owned by ESPN and Disney owns ESPN and Star Wars. So I just want to give a good Jedi. You got what Bayou Brian could be a Sith. I think he'd be more like a Sith. Maybe that's me just being like
Palpatine?
Bias. Palpatine. And then Elko would be kind of like, he's like a betweener. Like he's not like a Jedi, but he could be a Jedi because he's leading a faithful Texas A&M. I could be biased because they beat my Notre Dame team, but overall, I think it's a good game.
I kind of like him as a Jedi. Yeah.
Notre Dame did beat them the year before when they went to a national championship, and they beat us this year. So, 1 for 1, it is what it is. He also did coach at Notre Dame. But let's get into this action. We got Toledo traveling to Washington State, in which should be what we call a pay-to-play game in the middle of the season, Nick. Isn't that right?
No doubt about that. So this is an interesting point spread to me. Toledo plus 1.5 at Washington State. Now, how do you know you're playing big boy football, Coach Drew? I quizzed my younger brother Matthew on this earlier. You know you're playing big boy football when your games are aired on the CW network. So congratulations to both of these teams.
Isn't that where Batman is? They're going to take off Batman?
There's a Batman spinoff somewhere on the CW. If not, it's in production right now.
So also, now we're not going to watch Batman?
This is the comedy game of the week. I wanted to point out that when we were looking up stats earlier for our game prep, the Cougars, ESPN let me know when I looked up Cougar stats, they're in first place in the Pac-12. So congratulations to the Cougars right here in first place in a conference that has two teams. So thank you, ESPN, for that statistic. So this is an interesting bit of scheduling, like Coach Drew just pointed out. Obviously, we're pulling for the Rockets here as part of the Midwest Blitz. We love Tucker Gleason. We love the bowl upset they had over the Pitt Panthers last year. Interesting scheduling, though. 7 games into the year, traveling to the West Coast for a non-conference game. It's a good chance for Coach Candle's Rockets to go play a bigger school on the road in a tough environment that will not cost them their chance at a MAC title game appearance, which really has to be their ultimate goal. Bowl eligibility should be a given for them with the talent on their roster and the returning really solid quarterback in Gleason. But yeah, this road game in October is pretty weird. Toledo had a disappointing loss to Bowling Green a couple weeks ago, but they rebounded against Akron last week, as you're prone to do when you play Akron. But let's look at Washington State's record real quick. When we go out of the Midwest here, Drew, I like to just see who you played and what the scores were and things of that nature. Washington State, first place in the Pac-12, don't forget it, is 3-4, but their losses are to Washington, the Washington Huskies, who have a very talented offensive roster at least. CFP Dark Horse North Texas, number 4 Ole Miss, and number 18 Virginia. So the losses that Washington State has accumulated are nothing to shake a stick at. These guys are not playing an easy schedule since they basically don't have a conference to play in. They're just shopping around teams that are willing to play them. So I find it interesting, although Toledo has been respectable. They lost by 8 points to Kentucky, I think. Toledo has not played bad this year at all. Statistically, their defense is good, but the fact that they're only getting 1.5 points on the road when they have to travel close to 2,000 miles to the West Coast, I found interesting. But good luck to Tucker Gleason, Chip Trainum, and the Rockets in this road trip. Drew, you want to touch on that one before I go to Western Michigan and Miami, Ohio?
Yeah, I just want to point out that we are definitely pulling for the Toledo Rockets, as I coach them in NCAA football, and if it was this year's NCAA installment, I definitely would have paid for that team a little bit with NIL money by winning some championships and online play. But Tucker Gleason, I'm hoping that his stock goes up for the NFL. We're really pulling up for MACtion quarterbacks to make it. The MACtion does matter. It's been We're trying to hype it up as much as possible. For some reason, they just beat the hell out of each other, and it's kind of like the Big Ten sometimes, where you just see some middle class teams beat you, and that happens a lot. Washington State, I just want to say they started at home at Idaho. They stayed against San Diego State. They traveled to North Texas, got whooped. Went back home, played Washington, got whooped. Then went to Colorado State. Went back home for classes. Went to Mississippi to Ole Miss. Went back for classes. Flew back to Virginia. Went back for classes. Now they get to hold the Toledo Rockets. I mean, that's tiring. At least they got to sleep in their old beds this weekend. Then they play Oregon State, which should be the Pac-12 championship. And then they play James Madison, which is also in Virginia. Then they play Oregon State again. Wait a minute. Hold on. How did they play Oregon State twice? Wait a minute. They already have the championship game planned out with two teams? What is this?
It's the Pac-12 championship game, Drew.
Are you sure? No, there's not going to be an eligible? They're also going to be playing on the CW network. So right after Batman at 3:30, you can tune into the Pac-12 championship where Oregon State takes on Washington. All right. Professionalism.
Good luck to Coach Chasing Candles and the Rockets. Good luck to Tucker Gleason and Chip Trainum. God bless you, Rockets.
All right, let's move on to Western Michigan, Miami, Ohio. That hopefully doesn't play also on the CW because I might lose my shit. Here we go, Nick. Go ahead.
So Western Michigan is also plus 1.5 against a heated MAC rival in the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. That's one of my favorite nicknames in the country, Drew, the Redhawks. Nothing against the Broncos of Western Michigan, but so plus 1.5 on the road. Western Michigan travels to Miami of Ohio. So these are two of the last 3 MAC teams that have not lost a conference game. The other one being Buffalo, who was Drew and mine's choice, arrived at separately to win the MAC conference. Toledo was the overwhelming favorite. So early, we thought maybe our MAC champion pick in Buffalo was lost when they had lost a couple games early in the non-conference, but Buffalo riding high. They will probably be the only unbeaten MAC team after Western Michigan and Miami, Ohio fight it out. So Broncos already beat Toledo. Miami still has on their schedule to play Buffalo, Toledo, and the Ohio Bobcats, the formidable Ohio Bobcats, with Parker Navarro, the pre-conference player of the year in the MAC conference. So this is a huge game in the MAC standings. And like I said, Buffalo's still 3-0. They still have to play Bowling Green, who's been dangerous. They also beat Toledo. They play Miami, Ohio, and Ohio, Buffalo still. So the reason that I'm bringing up the remaining games in the MAC is that the best is yet to come with the MACtion that's coming up on weeknights in November, because they saved the primetime matchups in the conference for the primetime games that will be played on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and possibly Thursdays coming up as the holidays set in. So Drew, the MACtion is almost upon us, and I think it's kind of cool that they actually saved the prime time. These are going to be the best games played in the MAC for the most part, will be the MACtion games in November and early December.
Yeah, this game is only being decided by 1.5 in Vegas, going with the spread. You bet Western Michigan is even money line heel, and Miami, Ohio's minus 120. Remember, Miami, Ohio did play in the MAC championship last year, but took a loss to Parker Navarro and the Ohio Bobcats. Western Michigan Broncos are a team that's playing really well, recruiting pretty well, as I know one of the recruits headed over there, one of my former baseball guys. So who knows? Maybe he might play for Western Michigan. We might have him on the podcast. I don't know why sometimes I get a
Podcast.
Boston accent. Sometimes I get I think we're
Podcast.
Boston. Sometimes I think we're on the East Coast, not the Midwest. That's just me.
Park the car.
Park the car on the podcast. So again, Western Michigan, the Broncos travel to Miami, Ohio Redhawks, and this is just gonna be an interesting game. Like stated before, they're both 3-0. This is one of the big fights that we had to cover. We're finally getting to see some big games in action, and it's at 2:30. So right after you check out the next game we're about to preview, spoiler alert, someone's gonna be there, and Big Noon's gonna be there. Do you want to head to that one now, Nick?
I did contact Fox in the Big Noon kickoff to let them know I would be at this game. So they moved it up early, so I had to get up early to be down there to tailgate and whatnot. It is, if you haven't figured it out, the UCLA Bruins, the Red Hot Bruins, plus 25.5 at number 2, Indiana. Fox Big Noon kickoff. The Bruins have been a nice surprise this college football season. I mean, it's a real feel-good story. We were pretty hard on the Bruins early in the year. Right, Drew? I mean, I hope it's not just me. Okay.
No, we were absolutely hard on him.
So
Bryce Underwood doesn't play for them, does he?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Drew. So the Bruins party is about to get crashed by Fernando Heiz Mendoza, Waffle House Elijah Surratt, D'Angelo Pons, and the Big Ten's top-rated defense, according to Pro Football Focus. The Hoosiers are about to roll in this one. I don't know if they cover the 25.5. I had a minus 27.5 last week, and that got busted by a late field goal. But if UCLA knows what's good for them, they're not going to run Nico 15, 16, 17 times like they have been, because the Indiana linebackers might have him leaving the stadium on a stretcher. He's played against some defenses that have not been quarterback accountable, and he's ran for a lot of yards, and he's thrown the ball well too. So this is not a knock on Nico, but it's not a great strategy against one of the nation's best defenses to run your quarterback the way they have been. But they've had success with it, and they have a new young play caller in Jerry Neuheisel, who's obviously breathed life into that offense. But they cannot come out and expect Nico to run as often as he has. I just don't think that what they've been doing is a good formula for success in a road game against one of America's top defenses, and obviously Indiana could put some points on the board also.
Yeah.
Yeah. The peppermint helmets,
those are
I
pretty
remember that, under Kevin Wilson.
Those are pretty sick. But enough about reminiscing about the past. The new number 1 football team in Indiana. Yes, I said it. I am a Notre Dame fan, but game is game.
Thank
right?
you, Drew.
The new number 1 Indiana football team, the Hoosiers, are hosting the Bruins, who are 3-0. And as we talked about before in the recap, I think we mentioned this before. I know me and Nick talked about it. Was that Coach Sig talked about this game and said, well, they're 3-0, and that's how we have to approach it. This is a red hot team and all this stuff. Well, a lot of people in the comments, which again, those are the people in the crowd who throw the tomatoes and the lettuce and the gladiators. Apparently, some of them didn't like it and were like, "Well, he should." I mean, that's a 3-4 team. Blah blah blah. There's a lot of people that don't understand just ball in general. I mean, they say we don't know ball, but hey, we're not passing the first stone or the first tomato in gladiator warfare. But I will say this. UCLA Bruins are not going to be taken lightly. I was going to say this was a trap game. I think anytime the Hoosiers play a team that's not ranked well as a trap game, But I know Sig is ready. Sig is not playing this like a trap game. Sig is getting his soldiers ready to not to play this like a trap game. As long as they buy in and stay with it, this game should be easily covered by Indiana with the spread. Because like you said, the quarterback for UCLA, he's not going to be running the ball as much. And that's where success has been. They're going to have a spy. They're going to do a lot of things. Heisman Mendoza is just gonna ball his brains out. Like this is just how it is. Your quarterback and is your best thrower and rusher. Like that's crazy. Like that's not gonna happen. Indiana's gonna stop that one human being, and it's gonna be a bad day for UCLA. Credit to them, 3-0. This is where the party stops.
No hate for the Bruins. Yeah, they're too one-dimensional offensively.
Well, it's time. Nebraska. Yeah, let's talk about Nebraska now.
Coach,
I'll take this one.
Okay.
I got you. I want to talk about this because Nebraska. This is me playing a violin, crying for you guys, because I understand where you guys are at. Now, I'm not gonna play a big violin because, guys, it's okay. If Matt Rule leaves, your prayers will be answered. This is a thing that has been very common with the team. They want to move on from Matt Rule. I understand. You guys, he bought into a system. It reminds me of when a coach comes in. Like we've gone through a couple coaches as being a Bears fan. You get a couple coaches who just come in there and they just start saying, well, I'm going to do this, this, or this. I'm not doing it. Besides Ben Johnson right now, and Ben Johnson's very early in his career, and I'm not even going to write him one way or another because it's too early. But I've seen coaches come in, and this is exactly kind of how Matt Rule handled the Nebraska situation. There's no reason why Nebraska should be competing for the Big Ten championship and possibly a college football playoff. Where they're at right now is unexcusable, and I understand your pain, guys. But going into the analysts of this game, Northwestern, a team that's very under the radar, flies into Nebraska, a low-key football powerhouse state. Nick, go ahead and let's talk about it some more.
So I was going to say, I wonder if the speculation that Matt Rule might not be here next year has been a distraction for the Cornhuskers. They went up to Minnesota and lost last Friday night in a very entertaining Midwestern football game for sure. But yeah, the thought that he might leave and that maybe he hasn't squelched the kitchen fire of the idea that he might leave might be a distraction for the Cornhuskers. On the other side of the ball, Coach Braun has got the Wildcats kind of balling right now. I've never been more hyped about Northwestern football. And, I mean, if any of you have ever been hyped about Northwestern football, they've had some nice teams at times. Robert Fitzgerald leads a stout Wildcat defense into this game with 60-some tackles. Let me give you a couple stats, Coach. This Wildcat defense is fifth in the Big Ten in points allowed per game at 15.1 and fourth in the Big Ten in completion percentage at 58.6%. I say all that to say Nebraska might be a little down in the dumps after a 2-2 conference start, loss at Minnesota, but this feels like an Emmett Johnson game to me. You get Emmett Johnson going the run game, he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. Get the run game going because going past first, even though you got Raiola, and we believe in Dylan Raiola. We've been converted, or I've been converted into a Dylan Raiola believer as the seasons went along, but you don't want to go past first against this Wildcats defense. They're better against the pass and the run. Get Johnson going. Northwestern shut Purdue out last week. Not that that's the world's greatest football accomplishment, but the reason they were able to shut the Boilers out in the fashion that they did is because Purdue has been so reliant on the pass, and Purdue's passing game has been good. Nebraska's has been better, more talent. I get that, but Nebraska needs to come out and establish the run against the Wildcats, and that's the formula to success in this game. And I and Coach Shue are in no way rooting for Matt Rule to leave unless you guys want him to leave, but that means you get to fire him and pay his buyout. But I don't appreciate Coach Drew all this midseason talk about, Kurt Cignetti was going to go to Penn State and then they re-sign him, and then this coach is going to go to this school and then they re-sign him, and then now, I don't know, they're talking about Louisville's coach who's a Louisville alum who's waited to get that job his whole life, and they're like, he might go to Florida and all this other nonsense. I'm not a fan of it, Nebraska fans, so if you guys want to fire the guy and pay his buyout, more power to you, but I don't want to see him get stolen away when you guys have a talented roster a terrific quarterback with some weapons around him. I love Barney at wide receiver also. So noon on Fox Sports 1 Eastern Standard Time is that game, Coach Drew.
Yeah, the one last thing I want to mention too is Northwestern might become the Grim Reapers of the Big Ten coaching, because I was just thinking about it. They went to Happy Valley and they beat James Franklin, who now doesn't have a job. If Northwestern can pull it off and go to Nebraska and beat Matt Rule, that might be the thing that Matt Rule and then both agree to part ways because of all the distractions and just move on. I mean, this is all speculations. I have no data to back that up, but I feel like that's the honest opinion that I'm also getting from that area, from all our Nebraska people that check in with us. So if you think that it's different, let me know. Again, I support Nebraska fans, not what the outcome. I had to deal with the Brian Kelly situation when I was a Notre Dame fan. So
Right.
I still am a Notre Dame fan. I said when I was, I'm still am a Notre Dame fan. Brian Kelly made you feel a weird way, and I get it. So moving on to West Lafayette, we now have the Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights, what seems to be two teams that are looking to get a win in the Big Ten. Guess what? One team has to win, right? There's no ties in college football, only in NFL, I think. So how do you feel about this one, Nick? What is the crystal ball saying? Wisconsin's not winning this week, so Purdue and Rutgers look like they might slide past Penn State. So what do you think?
The Rutgers Scarlet Knights travel to West Lafayette to take on the Purdue Boilermakers. Choo-choo. Boilermakers at home plus 2.5. I was kind of taken aback by that line. This is also a noon Eastern Standard Time kickoff on the Big Ten Network. If Purdue doesn't win this game, it might be their last chance to win a game this year. And I feel like, Drew, as an IU fan, pretty optimistic about the progress that Purdue had made, at least on offense, early in the season, but I feel like they might be kind of discouraged, dejected, down on themselves after getting shut out at Northwestern last week in a high school stadium on the lake. Purdue's remaining schedule after this is Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and IU. Starting quarterback Ryan Brown is doubtful after a shoulder injury last week. I think that Athan Kaliakmanis, who's had a couple bumpy weeks but started throwing the ball around the yard for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, I think he's going to return closer to early season form and win on the road at Ross-Ade Stadium this weekend. Ian Strong got held below 100 yards for Rutgers, the wide receiver, for the first time all season last week. He's going to get back to his big game form on Saturday at Purdue. I don't see it for Purdue right here. And like I said, when I went to cover this game and I saw Purdue's getting 2.5 at home against Rutgers, who has the worst defense in the Big Ten easily, I thought, yikes, Vegas doesn't have any faith in the Boilers. And without Brown, I'm not insulting the backup. I don't want to say his name. We don't mock college athletes on the Midwest Blitz unless they do something heinously stupid. It doesn't look good for Purdue right now, Drew.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Purdue at all at home. We hope that Purdue can play well. I mean, again, we have if Purdue football can get to where kind of Indiana is now. First, they have to make the college football playoff. Where Indiana is way above where we're talking good football programs, right? But it'd be kind of cool to see Purdue, Indiana, and Notre Dame kind of get like on the schedule to play each other at a high level each season. Maybe some in-house rivalries going there.
Indiana
Since apparently Notre Dame's losing games.
Indiana's currently scheduled to play Notre Dame in 2029 or 2030. I can't remember which year.
Which it happens every once in a while. Yeah.
Well, they hadn't played since like 1960 something before the college football playoff last year, but yeah, I would love to see the whole state do well at football. Of course, I want Indiana to win, and I'm not a Purdue fan, but it doesn't really make me happy to see Purdue in the situation that they're in. Look, the Purdue athletic department and the school have to commit to winning at football, and that means spending money. But I think they're still in the place that Indiana was in for the better part of 100 years, which is we're a basketball school and we're okay with that. Well, remaining in the Big Ten Conference in an era with all the money that's been thrown around, and Indiana has committed, the new university president, Pam Whitten, and the athletic director, Scott Dolson, they have They've gotten the money. They've committed to winning at football, and that's how the turnaround happens so fast. Getting a good coach like Cignetti's a part of it, but the administration has to decide they want to win at football, and that means spending money, raising money. It means boosters coming in. Maybe one of those astronauts that landed on the moon could come in and throw you some money. Little shot at you Boiler fans, but like you're not going to be able to compete. Odom is a good football coach. He was very good at his last stop. You're going to have to throw some money at it, though. That's just the game that college athletics has become. Love it or hate it. But, yeah, I have nothing else to say about it.
According to the college football video game, it takes about 2 to 3 years to figure out how to rebuild something in your spitting image of an offense. And I agree with you. Going in Purdue, you don't necessarily have... Going to Purdue, it's like it is what it is in the toolbox. It's not like when you go to Alabama and you're getting Craftsman tools, or you're going to Notre Dame or IU right now. If something would have happened to any of our coaches that is outside of contractual stuff, the thing is you're getting a good roster. Here's like, well, I want to run this offense. Well, that's not necessarily possible because of the tools that are there. I know they worry about that in the hiring process, but I want to say by year 2, Purdue should be, winning a lot more games because they'll have the people around them that they need. And like you said, they'll get the money from the astronauts and they'll get the money from computer science for the first computer science school. So we'll see where that goes. You want to head over to Washington, who's hosting the Fighting Illini?
The Illini. Oh, it's a lot more comfortable, Drew. This shoe fits a little better than the last one we were trying to talk about. So the Fighting Illini travel to Washington to face the Huskies. Illini plus 4.5, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on the Big Ten Network. Washington is fresh off an underwhelming loss at Michigan, while the Illini are super fresh off a bye week. They played Ohio State 2 weeks ago. Look, Brett Bielema's had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Illinois is a 2-loss ball club right now. They still have college football playoff dreams and expectations going on. This is absolutely Brett Bielema's Super Bowl right now, as it should be. We're going to get some stats here in a second, but the remaining schedule for Illinois after this is Maryland, who has exceeded expectations but is very winnable for Illinois, Wisconsin, who is winnable for anybody, and Northwestern, who's solid but not a ranked football team, and a deserved ranked football team as the Illini are. Like I said, this is the Illini Super Bowl right now. They've had 2 weeks to get ready for it. And I thought that Illinois was respectable against Ohio State. But Ohio State is the number 1 team in the country for a reason. And there's no doubt about that here on the Midwest Blitz. Altmaier had a valiant effort against number 1 Ohio State 2 weeks ago. Look, that's a tough nut to crack, pun intended, when you're facing the Ohio State Buckeye defense right now. Washington, I waited all year for Washington to do 2 things: play defense and block for Jonah Coleman in the run game. And they've shown me at this point, I don't have any faith that that's going to happen. Washington has the number 9 defensive grade overall, according to Pro Football Focus. They have the number 96 coverage grade by Pro Football Focus and the number 88 run defense grade. Now, we said this about USC going into the Notre Dame game. Illinois will run the ball right down your throat. They made adjustments after the early season loss to Indiana. They ran the ball all over USC for much of that game, but had 2 turnovers that kept the game close. Illinois is more than capable of bringing Caden the Hammer Fegan right down the pike at you. And that's what they need to do. And then they need to let Altmaier air it out to Hank Beatty, one of my favorite players in the country, an all-purpose back, mostly a wide receiver, but you can hand it to him. You can throw it to him. Hank Beatty is an underrated player with a potential NFL future, in my opinion. The Washington offense would be good if they could block for Jonah Coleman in the run game, but they haven't. So I'm going to say that they can't until they prove that they can. Damon Williams and Boston, the quarterback to wide receiver connection there, is a positive for this offense, but it's not going to be enough to keep up with the Illinois run game. Time of possession, Illinois is going to control it. The Illinois front 7 is going to shut down Washington's run game. They're going to put Washington in tough, long yardage situations in the passing game. And Matt Bailey and Miles Scott will be there in run support from the 3rd level of the defense if and when they're called on, because they are Illinois' 2 leading tacklers. I got this bet Illinois plus 4.5. Drew, this almost feels like a spread to me that's too easy, so maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see how Washington stops the run. And that is what Illinois is going to lean on in this football game.
Well, we're talking about this game. This is another elimination game that we talked about as we previewed the SEC, I can't say it, but the
SEC-ESPN.
Southeastern Conference teams that we previewed, I'll edit it out. Washington is 5-2, Illinois is 5-2, so this would be a good quality win. Because I'm thinking about this from Notre Dame's perspective, just like in comparison to other teams, Illinois' 2 losses is to the number 1 team and the number 2 team. I mean, you can't get any better quality losses when you're going against the top 2. And I don't see Illinois or Ohio State really kind of going away. I know Ohio State has to play Michigan, so let's not double down that road too far yet. We're getting there. Let's hype that one up a little before we make picks. But this resume that Illinois has, they won on the road at Duke. Yes, they got spanked by Illinois. They beat this team called the USC Trojans. This is very similar to Notre Dame. Now, yeah, they got spanked by Ohio State at home, but Ohio State's the number 1 ranked team. They're not Texas A&M. Texas A&M's high too. These two, I just wanted to throw that out there for people who haven't realized how close Illinois is. And Illinois' football program has always made it very clear that they hate Notre Dame because they steal their recruits. I want to mention this. That last game, if it's between Northwestern and beyond Northwestern's the college football playoff, Brent Bielema is going to try to kill that team for 2 reasons. 1, college football playoffs, let's state the obvious. And number 2, he hates that Northwestern tries to steal all his damn recruits from Chicago to play at this new big stadium that they're trying to get. I'm actually excited for that game. Not this year, but I don't know, it might be fun to preview as far as two Illinois schools playing against each other. But that's all I got to say about this game. What a time to be in the Big Ten. Now we got some fight cards going here, aren't we?
USC should still be ranked, by the way.
Well, that's true. We're going to get into that also, too, possibly at the end. But USC has a bye. Is there a pig running around here somewhere squealing?
I believe there is, Coach Drew, and it's going to be in Iowa City as the Minnesota Golden Gophers row their boat down the river to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes. This will be 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Minnesota is now plus 9.5 going into this game. This is an interesting matchup because it's an old Big Ten West rivalry. These teams are very familiar with one another. So the Gophers devastated Nebraska last week to the tune of 9 sacks, which that's the game in a nutshell right now. They could not protect Dylan Raiola from Anthony Smith and the rest of this Gopher defense. Iowa's got two wins in a row after the heartbreaking loss to Indiana. There is no love lost in this game between the Gophers and the Hawkeyes. Don't have my phone in my hand, but our friend of the show, Hawkeye Iowa Todd, I had a text exchange with him earlier, and he said that Kirk Ferentz owns PJ Fleck. Not my words. Hawkeye Iowa Todd's words. I think he's 5-1 against PJ Fleck, and Fleck's had a good record at Minnesota. Minnesota on the road at Iowa. What do you need to do here? You need to stop the run. The Gophers, 5th in PFF run defense grade. Iowa is going to run it. Then they're going to run it again. Then they're going to run a jet sweep to Caden Wheatgen. Then they're going to throw a screen. Then they're going to run it 6 more times. I think the Hawkeyes are going to wear the Gophers down up front in the run game with that massive Viking offensive line that we've talked about all season long, with Logan Jones at center, Jennings Dunker at right tackle, 2 future NFL players, probably a couple other NFL guys on that Hawkeye offensive line. I don't think that the Gophers' run defense is going to stand up. Now, I'm going to say this, though, 9.5 for Minnesota. I think Iowa wins this game, but I've got to bet down Minnesota plus 9.5 for this reason. Iowa wins a lot of football games, but they don't even attempt to beat you in a blowout fashion. It's a grinded out, old school power running game effect. And here's the question for the Gopher offense. Can Darius Taylor repeat? Darius Taylor, and mostly I'm asking the question about the Gopher offensive line, who has not made holes for him when he's been healthy this year and he's had a hamstring injury. Are they going to be able to duplicate what they did the last game against Nebraska and run the ball? Nebraska's run defense has not been as good as Iowa's all year, so I don't think so. And Drake Lindsey, the freshman quarterback from Minnesota, who's had a pretty good year, is going to face a lot of third and long situations. How is he going to respond to that? Aaron Graves and Max Llewellyn are going to be there, and the Iowa front seven to greet these guys with not much hospitality up front. These guys are some dogs on that fucking Iowa defense, man. I think Iowa is going to win in classic Iowa fashion, but they're going to win by 6, or they're going to win by 7, or hell, 8. They might record a safety. I got right now Minnesota plus 9.5, though, because Iowa doesn't win by 2 scores. They just beat you up and win somehow. That's kind of how I see this game going, Drew. What do you think?
Well, this is a classic Big Ten matchup. I got haymakers coming down in that offensive line. My X factor is Taylor. Can he go against a defensive line that has a bunch of NFL prospects, a defense that's NFL prospects? Gronkowski's going to run the ball. He's not going to throw it as much as we want him to. But you know what? We've come to figure out Master Splinter. That's why he brought him in. Can Master Splinter stop the man on the boat? The man on the boat goes down there. These teams are both 5-2. This is another elimination game for the college football playoffs. Not a lot of people are thinking that, but there's so many factors that go into those final 12 teams. If they can make a run for it, who knows what happens? There's still quality games on there for both teams. Minnesota, I would say Minnesota covers plus 9.5. This is giving me Iowa State, Iowa vibes. Like, I can see like a field goal. It's going to be some like, what did we say? Jitterbugging? Oh, it's on CBS. Can we get this to Fox? We need Gus Johnson to remind us what a jitterbug is. Because Taylor's going to be jitterbugging, Gronkowski's going to be jitterbugging. The 4 different running backs Iowa's going to run through, even a former region rat, Lake Central cat's going to be running through there. Let's see what Drake Lindsey does. That's the only X factor that, kind of like Beck, he can throw the ball. So that's going to be interesting to see. Is Coy Perch, is our boy Coy going to come in and do some things? Let's see what happens, right? Let these boys go in there and literally, there's this game back in the day. Now, this might be aging myself. Nick might know this. So, do you remember Steal the Bacon back in the day? You both start at one side of the court, and then you run to the middle. It might have been different at where you live, but Steal the Bacon is like you put like either like a football or you put a ball, or you can put like a little piece of cardboard. And they call a number on each side of the court. They run and grab it. Then once they leave the bubble of the middle of the basketball court, they're free to get tagged and they have to cross the line of the other team to get a point. Yeah, they're basically, long story short, they're playing Steal the Bacon, but Steal the Pig. Iowa and Minnesota are going to run in there, and one guy is going to come out of the middle, and that's going to have the hog at them at the end of the game. Isn't that right, Nick?
I think you're right, Coach Drew.
Well, let's fly over to Oregon, where Wisconsin tries to score something that's relatively, I guess, close to ducks, an egg. Are we going to see an egg on the scoreboard? A goose egg? Not a duck egg, maybe a goose egg? What's going on with Fickle over there, man?
Oh boy, Wisconsin plus 33.5 at Oregon. Maybe the worst point spread of the week and maybe one of the least anticipated games. Yeah, that was my question I'd written down. Does Wisconsin get shut out again? They've been shut out the last 2 games. I'm not sure if Oregon can cover 33.5, though, because they're going to get an early lead and then they're going to run, and try to get your guys out of there healthy. Dan Lanning, the road dog, and the home dog, looking to get that home winning streak going again. Number 6, Oregon, clearly is going to win this game. Drew, if Wisconsin won this game, which they're not going to, it would be probably the most stunning upset in my 30-some years of watching Big Ten football. Because Wisconsin cannot score. They just can't. They do defend the run pretty well most of the season, but goodness.
This is not your IU going over to Oregon to play football. It's definitely not the same roster. Some people might think that's what IU looked like before they went into Oregon, but Wisconsin is giving like a 2.8% chance to win. I just want to point out, 2.8%, does that mean they're predicting Oregon's like whole team to get sick with like a flu or something, or a bug virus, where they have to put in like redshirt players? plus 33.5, and somehow you still have a percentage, according to ESPN Analytics. What analytics is it? It's rating so bad that Wisconsin actually kicks a field goal through the goalpost to win the game. That's just, I think that's just when it's like 6 o'clock. If you turn this on, it might be spooky. It's Halloween. There might be a murder movie on, and it might be a badger getting beat by a duck mercifully on national TV on FS1. That was sad, Nick. And we like Wisconsin.
Wisconsin football does make us sad here on the Midwest Blitz right now, but boy, it's just not a lot nice to say. The athletic directors, we said on our recap of last weekend, has pledged support for Luke Fickell and wants to get him more resources to, I don't know, NIL, revenue share, or whatever.
The J.J. Watt Foundation?
The J.J. Watt Foundation. Shout out to J.J.
Is there
Watt.
any more Watt family members that can play football that are young?
Donate a few of them to the Wisconsin Badgers. That would help. But yeah, this is going to get ugly. Talk about a snooze fest. I mean, I love college football. Half our goal is to get you guys to watch games. This is not one of the games that we really want you to watch, but we brought it up because there's 7 games in the Big Ten this week. So there it is. Do you want to go to East Lansing? You ever been to East Lansing, Coach Drew? I had some beers there one time.
No, Michigan to me has a love-hate relationship. I'm a very big fan of New Buffalo, Michigan. Shout out to the Casino Blue Chip and all the fun amenities that you can catch off the highway that I can't say live on air. But, you know, there's some fun stuff you could do there. Michigan is a rivalry to Indiana for many different reasons. Notre Dame football, IU basketball. We can go through the list. But let's talk about Little Las Vegas. You can gamble online at your home, play slot machine casinos. You can go down the street. You can go down the street to a dispensary. You can fresh pick the best apples in America. I mean, I could say a lot of good things. They have a good casino, very good casino. So I might say one of the best casinos in the land.
Best casinos.
Michigan is like, it's a love-hate. That's all I gotta say. It's a little love-hate. We got a little crush on him, but we don't want to talk about him. It's like an ex. You don't want to talk about it too much, too good. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Nick.
Number 25, Michigan travels to East Lansing to face their hated in-state rival. Some call them the little brother.
East Las Vegas?
East Las Vegas, Michigan. I wasn't aware of this. Drew, we got to take a trip. Michigan State plus 13.5 at home. And we talked about this off the air before we started recording, that 13.5 seems like a small line considering the limited chance of victory that I see for Michigan State. I felt like Michigan State had a great game plan against Indiana last week in the first half. They limited the Hoosiers to 3 possessions, which they scored on all 3 of, and still weren't able to really keep that game close. This is the battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy, Coach Drew. We want to point that out. We love our trophy games here on the Midwest Blitz. So I'm hearing rumors that Michigan State fans are sick of Jonathan Smith already. He's only in his 2nd year there. Talented quarterback in Childs is still there, but the enthusiasm around the program is waning. I talked to my Michigan insider earlier. He told me that he thinks that the Michigan State fans don't really like Jonathan Smith because he doesn't fit the blue-collar kind of hard-ass mentality that Michigan State has always lived on, and I always kind of loved that about Michigan State. Well, I didn't love it when T.J. Duckett was running roughshod over the Indiana Hoosiers in the late 90s and early 2000s, but yeah, Smith is a good coach. He's kind of a thoughtful, well-spoken guy. He doesn't really have like the blustery, like, we're going to kick your ass type of personality like some of the other more beloved Michigan State coaches have had over the years, and that might be part to do with why they're being impatient with him in East Lansing. But it's his 2nd year there, and again, this is a situation where they do not have the NIL money or the money behind the program that is probably required. And let's say this too, maybe this is Jonathan Smith's fault, but how many transfer portal guys did they get in the offseason that really contributed this year? I'm not going to pull my notes out and bore you guys right now, but it ain't very many. They had a few guys back. They had a few studs on offense who have produced pretty well when they've had the opportunity, but 13.5 is a pretty good line because Michigan's going to run. We know that. They'll let Underwood air it out a little bit more as the season goes along, but I just don't see how Michigan State hangs around. Their defense has not been great all year. Their offensive line's pretty good, running back pretty good, quarterback pretty good. They got a couple weapons at wide receiver, but I think Michigan just kind of grinds them here, Coach Drew.
Yeah, I mean Michigan's gonna go through the ground game through Michigan State. Michigan State being 0-4 and ready for losses, they're still trying to stay bowl eligible. This is a rivalry game. Michigan State's gonna try to win this. We're gonna really see if they really do want their head coach to still be there, because you can tell on this game at 6:30 on NBC who really wants to be there. I mean, again, this is a class. This seems like it's gonna be a classic. Like Michigan State might stick around for a little bit. I don't know how long, but it's a rivalry game. They might stick around for like the first half, right? But after that, I just see Michigan blowing them out after that. So one of the other things too, I do want to mention, this is kind of setting yourself up to what we mentioned earlier. The Michigan Wolverines are 5-2. They're 3-1, right? Every game for them is a playoff game. They're 25 right now in the AP, and USC is 26. Now, we don't count the 26 team, the AP. There are 60 different vote differential, and why Michigan's there and USC's not. But again, a lot of these Big Ten teams, and that's why it's getting so interesting down here to the stretch. Michigan might be hosting an undefeated Ohio State at the Big House to determine if they go to the college football playoffs or not. Putting a Badger, and I don't want, and again, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. Putting a Badger and a Wolverine, not a Badger. I was thinking of like what their mascot looks like, but a Wolverine in a corner against Ohio State for the college football playoffs. Holy hell, that is going to be a fun game to watch. But this one right now in East Lansing that we're covering, I think Bryce Underwood shows why he's getting paid all that NIL money, and he's going to show why if Michigan State wants to survive in this new era, they're going to have to pay. I know they're also struggling in their basketball program as well, getting players. So it's a very interesting shift of power we're seeing across the land. Isn't that right, Nick?
It's a whole new world, Coach Drew, a whole new world. Vanderbilt and Indiana are in the top 10. Favorite thing to talk about, but it is a reality. As we come down the stretch, and Michigan State had an over-under from Vegas of 5.5, and now you're wondering if they're going to be able to get there. I don't know. Battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy.
I just also wanted to mention, too, that Northwestern is actually third right now on ESPN's rate, or fourth, I should say, for the Big Ten. They're also tied with USC, Iowa, Michigan, and Minnesota. So, I mean, Northwestern's right there with, like, just intriguing to me. There's a lot of teams that this Big Ten is very, very going to be, like, hard fall for the next couple years. When I see teams like Wisconsin that are going to pay players in the future, you got the unfortunate of Penn State down there. Michigan State's going to retool. Maryland's this team that's out of nowhere playing football again, which is good. Washington's a good football program. Nebraska's like it is. This is a brand. This is the Big Ten and the SEC. Like we might see like almost like how they do in their basketball season. They might cross some games early in the season just to prove a point. You might see. Well, you did see Ohio State play Texas, but like other teams cross. The top teams from the Big Ten play the top teams of the SEC and get some real shit talking going in the chat, right? People would love to see that. Oh, Georgia's playing Michigan. And Ohio State's playing Alabama. You know, Texas is playing IU or Oregon, you know. I don't know who we throw out there. Like, it's almost like golf, like it'd be like the Riders Cup. Like who we throwing out there? Like what 5 teams would we roll with and what 5 teams would they roll with and how would they play it? That'd be a fun segment to cover, huh? Hypotheticals there.
I think the hypothetical is that Michigan State and Wisconsin and Purdue are going to spend any money next year. I hear some words about it, but I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, this is the arms race of spending right now in college football. And some of these teams are just not equipped. But I would say again about Michigan State, if I had a criticism of Jonathan Smith in his second year, I don't think that they really got anybody in the portal, but that probably feeds back into the money situation that Coach Drew just touched on there with some brevity. I love the brevity, Coach Drew. It's one of my favorite things about you.
I just, stay true to myself. is what we say in the Midwest Blitz. We don't change for nobody. Nobody who comes through the door. Now that we're heading to the Midwest goodbye, looking at this Big Ten like conference and just going through it, it's like I said this like when USC came over. I'm like, holy hell, USC, this powerhouse from the West Coast is coming over. But they're not doing well when they travel. And then you got Washington, who's almost in the same boat. I wonder, Nick, are we going to see some transparency in the Big Ten accommodating in the future? Like you said, there shouldn't be reasons why these teams are playing at 9 a.m. They also are the new kids on the block, so they might get bullied a little bit.
That's exactly what I think is going on. If you can job somebody in the schedule or in any other way, shape, or form, that's happened in the past. If you go back to, we're into the Midwest goodbye, which we're going to abbreviate. But when the ABA, the American Basketball Association, 4 teams merged with the NBA, they penalized the ABA teams, the Spurs, the Pacers, the Nuggets, and I always forget the fourth one.
Was it Tropic Thunder?
It was not Tropic Thunder, but they tried their best in the movie. Good call, Coach Drew. They penalized them draft picks. They penalized them money. They penalized them revenue share of TV contracts for a long time, and it hindered those franchises that I just mentioned. And we love to do sport-to-sport comparisons because the way leagues are run, there are a lot of parallels. Not in baseball because they don't have a salary cap, but, there are parallels between different sports and the way different leagues are run. Yeah, I think that they have jobbed some of the West Coast teams with the big noon kickoff for Washington last week and all that. But Coach Drew, I'd like to wrap this up because I've got to go. I got to go to John, Coach Drew.
I got you.
Some ants in my pants here.
All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm just gonna say the MLB does have no budget, but they pay high luxury taxes. I think if the Big Ten does enter their new contract, super contract, I don't think those teams could protect themselves behind closed doors anymore if they get controlled by a different entity that is paying for them for these brands. That's just one thing I want to tackle, but we'll tackle that on another day. On a Midwest Goodbye, we never let somebody not use the Porty Johns, and that's where Coach Nick, Big Nick, has to go. So this is Coach Drew signing off.
See you guys. Enjoy the games.
See ya.